This is so much more music than before. It's unbelievable. I'll present 3 tips for a great installation in the Sprinter W907. Now we can turn it up. Now we have bass. You didn't even realize you had that before. We keep it like that, right? You don't really need to know much about sound to realize that the sound in the new Mercedes Sprinter W907 is miserable as hell, and we'll show you how to do it better. Now it's all about the speakers and the accessories that I've prepared for you here for this video. And of course, we'll install everything together. But first, I'll show you what speakers we have here for the Mercedes W907. Let's start with the woofer. The woofer is, of course, prepared so that it fits exactly into the original slot where the original speaker is located. That means we undo 4 screws from the original speaker. Take it out. Put the new speaker back in with the old 4 screws. And then plug it in with the exact same connector. The only difference is that we now have a very high-quality membrane. We have a super good drive unit, that means a magnet system, and can of course get a lot more out of it than with the original speaker. About the tweeter. The tweeter in the Mercedes Sprinter W907, the original one, is positioned on the dashboard under a grid so that it plays directly against the window pane and only comes back to me as sound as a reflection, so to speak. We thought maybe we could do better, and even save you a few more steps during installation. You'll see that later. In any case, we have the new tweeter, and we're talking about a 28mm fabric dome. It sounds really silky and really musical. And we've now even positioned them in such a way that instead of the grid you've just taken out, this loudspeaker is placed in a beautifully designed housing and nestles over the shape of the dashboard and is aimed precisely at you as the driver and front passenger. This has enormous sonic advantages. You'll notice it once you've installed it. The voices are very not dominant. That's the wrong word. But they are very present and clean to the touch. They just sound really raw-y. And if you're thinking, what's that speaker in the middle of the dashboard? That's the center speaker. We can replace it just as easily and simply because all the plugs are made in such a way that the polarity reversal is safe. I can't plug it in wrong. It fits perfectly, and the center speaker is now also acoustically perfectly matched to this speaker system, so that everything seems to be one piece. And the sound is also completely detached from the speakers. And you only have all the music enjoyment at your driving height. While we're on the subject of the center speaker, I'd like to point out that the original Mercedes center speaker is, to put it mildly, an outrage. It's so much too loud that you could say, it's not just bad, it's just wrong how loud it plays, because it plays so loudly in the foreground that you don't even notice the left speaker system and the right speaker system, because the center speaker is tuned too loud. Well, that sounds hellishly bad. We can replace it either with this center speaker. Although, you can also say at this point that there is also a center speaker to buy individually, adapted so that the center speaker, the retrofitted one, also has everything with the original speaker system from Mercedes. So the right and left work together. Of course, you can also just replace the right and left without the center speaker and say, I'm going to buy one of these attenuator pads. We have already made an extra video about it, where we show that this attenuator pad simply reduces the volume of the original center speaker to such an extent that it is harmonious again with the right and left speakers. But of course, if you want to do everything really well, it's best to get the whole set and not be scared. So that's our #1 tip. So with the center speaker, if you don't want it, you can also say, I'll just buy the attenuator pad, attach it to my original center speaker, and wait to see if it's acoustically okay for me, and then I can always decide later. Maybe I want another center speaker after all. However, it's up to you. Tip number 2. You know our bitumen tape. So those of you who have been watching our channel for a while know that bitumen tape is a bitumen compound that's just like rubber. But if I stick it somewhere, I can remove it again without leaving any residue, but it sticks. With that, we'll cover all the shutter topics in the course of this video, which is what we have in the vehicle here. Blinds in motorhomes everywhere are made of, plastic particles that, if we put a bit of bass on here, everything starts to vibrate, and what doesn't belong in the sound are foreign vibrations. They only make the sound bad. I'll show you how to get rid of these little nasties with this bitumen tape. And because I'm so nice, it's naturally included in the set. It comes with 1 meter of bitumen tape. That's how you can buy the set. Now we come to tip number 3. This is our MBW907AL. To be honest, I can't tell you exactly why we called it the AL back then. This is for all those who drive a B580 from Hymer. They have loudspeakers integrated into the fillet in the structure of the dashboard. That means above the ceiling, above the windshield, and they are so small. Nothing special. And they are even connected incorrectly somehow. So we should integrate this part here. I'll show you exactly where to integrate it. It's actually child's play. But then, your front door speakers and tweeters will start to play properly. And the top speakers will also start to rumble. They're just lightweight wooden elements with the things are integrated and everything starts to rattle. If we don't build a link in between to get everything under control, and that's just plug and play in between, and everything works. That was tip number 3. If you still need a tool to install the speakers and door insulation, you can of course also order a remover tool or a torque kit. This is also what you always need on the car to lever things, plastic parts, and remove screws. But we are now installing the loudspeaker system together. Now I'll show you, before we start, and this is a requirement, so that the sound of the loudspeakers becomes really great. To look at what the caravan or motorhome manufacturer has already done that isn't quite a Mercedes Sprinter or Mercedes building method. Let me show you what we're doing below, so that I can better explain what it's all about. We can remove the legroom covers with 2 screws very easily. And now we can up here unclip this part. It is only plugged in. And now we have another plastic rivet in here at the top, which can be easily removed with a remover tool. And then it is already unlocked at the top. And now we have another torque at the bottom. I can screw them away here. You can now take this plastic part a little to the side, and now we can see the corresponding connections in the back that come from the car radio. And these are now the speaker connections wired through or pluggable. At least, that's the case with the Sprinter B907 with the B580 body from Hymer. Maybe it's the same with many other vehicles, with other manufacturers. And I don't know what we can expect overall. In any case, the 4 loudspeaker outputs that run over here are front left, front right, rear left, and rear right. The center speaker is wired directly from the car radio. We can't find it down here at all. But it doesn't matter. We don't touch it much, except to replace the speaker later. But now came the desire to do this above the windshield, that is to say, above my head, as the driver, to accommodate additional speakers in this lightweight wood. For whatever reason, the idea was to connect them in parallel to the front speakers. And because the M-Books radio is not able to simply have the impedance of the loudspeaker, because if you connect two loudspeakers in parallel, then I have half the impedance, half the resistance, and then the car radio says, no, I'll switch it off. I won't make any more sound. And now they've installed a circuit in between. That does nothing other than give the original speakers here in the front door and on the dashboard more resistance, so that the overall resistance is high enough for the car radio to say, okay, that's fine. But what happens? We make the front speakers, the original ones here, which we are now also replacing, the important onboard speakers, we make them quieter. Power is lost in this resistance, and the loudspeakers at the top, which get the full signal, naturally rattle because they produce far too much bass. They are also far too loud, and that is exactly where we are now starting. We have now built this correct adapter, so that our front speakers naturally get the full signal from the car radio. But the upper speakers are now insulated with the resistor, and of course, the rear speakers, which are also in such a light board, which also only rattled, are now insulated at the same time, so that the upper and rear speakers now fit perfectly with the front speaker system. And now we can just plug this connector in between, and the one down there is the upper front speaker, which will now also be adapted with the appropriate resistor. And now we have the prerequisite for the whole thing, which we are now retrofitting, so that our new great speakers can sound really great. Then we start with our speakers, and in this case first with the center speaker. And now you can use a remover tool like this to get right under the plastic grid without causing any scratches. And here, we can then remove the grid, piece by piece. So, and under here, that's where our original center speaker is now hidden. We can only clip it out. It's in a rubber sleeve here, and we can now see two connections. And both are polarized in such a way that they can only fit as they should. And we can now plug it in. Okay, look, it was simply wrong. So, this fits in here, and this fits in here. And now we can put the speaker back in there and put the grid on. That's it for the center speaker. And anyone who now says, I would like to save the money, and I want to use the original center speaker, is, of course, not quite so potent. The edge now with this attenuator pad, and we have already made a video about it. Put that in between, then he won't be so cheeky. Then he'll be at a level where you can say, yes, we can live with that. That then has to be supplemented. In the dashboard, we also remove the cover grid with the remover tool. You can easily drive in from the side and unclip the whole thing. And our tweeter is also hidden in here. And we have to unlock it with the screwdriver on the side with a plastic thing. And then you can pull it out. We can drive in here and unlock the tweeter. And now it comes away upwards. And then you can also pull it out and unplug it. So, get rid of it. Now, you simply plug the new tweeter in. And put the cable material down here into the old tweeter hole. And now, we can fit the tweeter from above into the old latches from the old grid. And now we have the same color and structure given here, and it looks like it should be like this. Yes, nice? To install the new bass mid-range speakers in the door covering, we also have to remove the door lining. And there's a cover up here that we have to remove. There's one here and two more down here. There's a 30-point and a 20-point torque underneath here. Now let's take them all out. A screw from the door covering is also hidden under here. If you don't have a shutter cover or blind like that, You'll see it straight away. There's a cover over it. We have to get rid of something like that first. And now there's a little trick with our bitumen tape. We take one of these tiny little bolts and attach it to the front of our Phillips screwdriver, for example, because Hymer now has Phillips screws in here that attach this plastic frame to our door covering. There's another one underneath, and we still have to remove it. There's a small panel that we just have to remove. And there is another screw hidden underneath. This is a Phillips screw underneath, with which the plastic is screwed onto the plastic. So, we retrieve the whole thing, and with the bitumen tape, the screw just sticks there, and you don't have to worry about it falling back in somewhere. Now, we can remove the frame here. We now come to the last cover, which is still attached, and now we can also unscrew a 30 torque down here. There are 3 more plastic screw connections at the bottom. It's best not to go in there with a cross head, even if it is a cross head, but you would have to exert too much pressure. And then the plastic screw will stay in the plastic socket and won't budge. It is best to tighten a little with a slotted screwdriver. You might then be able to get your fingernail in at the bottom. It's a bit stupidly done. I don't know why it's still in there at all. And now we can also use the remover tool. Insert the cladding at the bottom here, and then pull the whole thing out, and release it upwards. We've forgotten another one. Look here. We can also unlock this panel here all the same from the door pin. And now we can finally unlock the whole door panel. I'll take it out now. And now we can stake out a few things at the back. Lever. Push the clasp backwards on the lever. So, now we can take it out at the top. We also now have a few plugs that we can unplug here. There's a release button everywhere. And here is the old loudspeaker with the loudspeaker plug. And now we can remove the door panel at the bottom. The door panel is anchored at the bottom, so it can't just fall off, but you can now actively pull it out. Down here is the woofer, which we're about to replace. And you can already see what a small drive this is here, that is to say, a small magnet. And we'll also insulate the door panel accordingly. Let's just start with that. We remove the old speaker with a 20mm torque. It is only screwed on from behind. Put it away. Oh yes, you can just tell the difference, whether you have something like this or something like that. That makes sound. And of course, we're going to put it in now. Here is a nose that is prepared just like this spot here. That means you can't really do anything wrong here. And now we screw the 4 screws back in. If you don't want to insulate, you are already finished and can fit the door trim to the door again. However, we have included 2 aluminum butyl damping mats in this speaker set, which contains everything, so that at least on these large surfaces, the rumbling can be removed. That's just everything that works with and against our sound. Of course, also for vibrations, if it's not done. And then everything starts to work, which is why we're now applying a whole bitumen mat of aluminum butyl here on larger surfaces to make them quieter. please press the aluminum butyl really firmly and firmly onto the plastic. It is self-adhesive, but the main thing is that there are no air bubbles underneath, as this would not work. So, apply it well. You can also use the appropriate tool from the remover tool and press it into the corners and edges for all it's worth. If a door is properly insulated, it also packs a better punch in the bass range. So you really do notice it. That's not just me talking. It's the reality. We can reattach all the leftovers here. And of course, it's also on the speaker. That's where the sound originates. So it's best to take it with you. Of course. You also need to put a lot of weight on it, so that it rattles less. We include an insulating foam mat in this set, which we can cut in half. This insulating foam actually absorbs the sound that is produced inside the door panel. If I let the sound break on here, then it really draws it away, so it's dead afterwards. That's all good for getting a good sound in the car. We can also put a bit of it around the speaker. Not over the speaker, please. So, anyone who has been following our channel for a while knows that bitumen is Ollie's favorite material. You'll love it yourselves. We can use this material for parts like this here. Can you hear that? It's already shaking and vibrating originally, as if we hadn't done anything yet. And as you can see, I've already started putting small parts in here. You can take this material now. Just tear it off like this. Then we have a rubber substance. And now, for example, we can also press this in over these places. And that's when these plastic parts start to adhere themselves, because you just need to. Now it's only at the bottom. Nothing's to be done at the top. And now we'll do the same thing again at the bottom. And so you can go through the car piece by piece and see what it is that's rattling around. You can do this. So of course this is quite extreme here. I also have a tip for you because, as you can see here, the outer skin can rattle on the inside. That no longer happens when we put bitumen in between. So, we put a small layer of bitumen in between. So, that's it. So this is now, it floats here, it's so deep, but nothing rattles anymore. And so, bit by bit, the door can be made quiet with the bitumen. It's all a bit of working time, but it's actually a bit of fun. I still have to tighten it up a bit down here. So, and this material can also be removed if you don't want it on anymore, because you need to change something or something like that. Can you see that? It's not an adhesive in the sense, it's an adherent substance, and it's just awesome. And now we also have, now that's something else, but here, that's quiet now. I've already done the same down here with bitumen tape around the outside. There are lots of small parts like that. Of course, things like that have to stay movable, but we can use it to keep the whole vehicle still, And you can also put a little bit of bitumen in the bottom of the blinds and so on, where you just can't see it, and then it sticks, and it doesn't rattle anymore. How cool! We have included so much aluminum butyl in this set that you can make the most important things yourself. And don't forget to leave at least a small amount for this sheet here. This sheet here, you're about to hear it. Listen to it again. And I'm going to cut something on it now, because this is exactly where the sound from the loudspeaker hits. And that's where we're going to put another piece of cloth. And now, it hasn't been so tinny for a long time, and now we can, anyone who wants to, can remove this cladding here, this water-repellent film, and insulate the outer skin and a bit of the rear with another aluminum butyl mat. This means that anyone who wants to do what we are doing now can simply buy 2 more aluminum butyl mats separately, and then we can do the same. And we can also remove this foil here now. Look, it comes off really easily. You just have to pull it away slowly. So, you can put that a little bit on the side, and now we can also insulate this metal sheet accordingly. We can even add something from the back here. Please clean the surfaces properly first, so that there are no things left on them. Where the aluminium butyl then loosens, meaning here with the grease cleaner, that is to say, with non-greasy material. There's no way you can do that with a silicone spray or something like that. Here you notice. This is what an uninsulated metal sheet sounds like. And this is what an insulated metal sheet sounds like, so the whole thing becomes quiet. And we can also save small shreds, for directly behind it, where our loudspeaker also bangs on it. Reapply the water protection film. It sticks just as well as before. So, tip-top. What does this mean again? Might start rustling, but I would say from experience, we don't hear that. Now we can hook the door covering back in at the bottom and fold it upwards in a relaxed manner. And now we'll reattach all the plugs and, of course, the unlocking mechanism for the door trim. Of course, this has to be plugged in. And these bolts put around it again. And the whole thing has to be put back into the box here, please. You can also try it out beforehand. Of course, it has to sound like this. And now we can put all the other plugs on as well. There's a purple one down there, the white one, and our loudspeaker plug that you cannot plug in the wrong way round is coated. Finished. Now, let's put our door covering on properly again. Check that the door pin is in the right place. And also, that all the pins on the side, the orange ones, really do look into a hole. You have to look pin by pin. Are we in the right place? And the same on the side over there, of course. Take your time here. I think there's another one. That's right. And now we can put the screws back in. And these are the plastics that we removed down there. They're just for sticking into each other. That stuff is a bit disgusting. It's just like a dowel and a plastic screw. And now we can put the plugs in. And then put the screw in afterwards. I'll now put all the screws back in. Put the caps back on, and then we'll have a look at the whole thing. Because we finished the installation, and then, of course, we'll listen in again. The special thing about the tweeters is that, firstly, we now have the axis of the loudspeaker pointed directly at us. This means that we have no phases that are reflected in any other way via the windshield. It just sounds really cool. And we've given it a shape, so that everything flows smoothly. And the aluminum ring also looks a bit stylish, and is visually completely based on this ventilation ring. And the whole thing looks really nice. Let's listen to the whole thing. And if you can understand that, if you have a Sprinter W907 and haven't done anything to it yet, then you don't turn it up at all because it sounds terrible. Have I ever said that it sounds terrible? But now, with the combination of the tweeter turned towards me and the center speaker, I have the voice that is singing right in front of me. And it sounds the same to the co-pilot. It also sounds simply divine in front of them. And now you can also drive loudly. Now it sounds like something. We can listen to something else. Why not? I now have a little more than half of the volume. Nothing rattles. Nothing vibrates. Make it a little louder again. What other songs do we have? Oh yes, that's nice, isn't it? That's beautiful music. Nice music. We can turn it up now, too. Looks great and sounds good. And we don't notice so much of the upper ones anymore. Here is my stage. And the sound settings for me are 0, 0, 0, bass 0, mids 0, high tones 0. If you now say, I want a bit more bass in it, you can put that in, but set everything to 0 for the initial setting and then listen to it first. And then you'll be happy.